early morning. Let's explore the 52nd verse of the Song of Enlightenment. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. This is the Lama you are looking for. Meditate Like a Jedi is brought to you by the kind folks who support this channel through Patreon for about the cost of 1 cup of coffee a month. This morning, we could chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two. But first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as Yoda on Dagobah under the guidance of Qui-Gon Jinn, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them, simply type that question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Let's chant. Scolded by the Tathagata, what good is counting others' treasures? I realized all my efforts had been in vain. All the years I had wasted braving dust and wind. The translator shares with us the following note. The first 2 lines refer to when the Buddha scolded Ananda for relying on learning to achieve enlightenment, likening his pursuit to counting others' treasures. In the Surangama Sutra, in which this is recorded, made its first appearance in South China in 705, the same year young Chia met Hui Neng. And once again, I apologize if my pronunciation is off. A second note from the translator reads, referring to the custom of traveling from teacher to teacher in search of the Dharma. So, in light of these notes, let's reread this, or rechant this. Scolded by the Tathagata, what good is counting others' treasures? I realized all my efforts had been in vain. All the years I had wasted braving dust and wind. So this is my thoughts on the passage. When the time is ripe, we cease to search for our teacher and instead search for what teacher sought. That which is revealed by making a habit of vulnerably sitting and noticing and releasing, no less than once every 12 hours. Good morning. At any time during this morning's live stream, when you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, type a detailed question in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Let's see, let's tap button 9 and take a look at the latest iteration of this morning's practice text, or sadhana, if you're nasty. Excuse me. I hope I didn't blow out your ears. Oh, the joys of hay fever. Okay. So, this iteration of this practice text is titled Secular Meditations and Contemplations of True Knowledge and Liberation. Now, that sounds grandiose, but it comes directly this verbiage comes directly from the translation of the Anapanasati Sutta. So let's explore something for a moment. Many teachers will say, after lecturing on the Anapanasati Sutta, that you simply must also train in loving kindness. And that makes sense. That's what I was taught. But a careful reading of the final quarter of the Anapanasati Sutta, we learn that we read the claim of sufficiency, that this practice in and of itself is sufficient for true knowledge, the perfection of mindfulness, and liberation, perfection of meditation. This reminds me of something written centuries later by the human founder of Dzogchen, Garab Dorje, who said that when our practice of mindfulness and meditation, and I'm paraphrasing, when our practice of mindfulness and meditation is potent, compassion takes care of itself. And that's only going to make sense through the lens of neuroscience as opposed to philosophy. So let's take a moment. I'm going to tap button 7 and hopefully access my pointer. So this is only a partial image of the spinal column. In the spinal column, we see, spinal cord. In the spinal cord, we house the autonomic nervous system. In the thoracic region, we have the sympathetic nervous system, which is wired for perceptual acuity, wherein we notice things vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. In the lumbar region of the, in the lumbar region and the cervical region of the same spinal cord, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is kind of like bookends to the sympathetic nervous system. And through this parasympathetic nervous system, during each exhalation, we physically relax and mentally release. Studies have shown that when we are under duress, circumstantial or physical duress, our neurological electrical activity coalesces in our amygdala fear center. However, in the absence of peril, our default setting is for our electrical activity to gather here in this letter C shaped tissue, the anterior cingulate gyrus, the veritable hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy. And so what has been discovered by neuroscientists and anthropologists and primatologists was also described by the contemplatives of yore, that when we have a healthy, transformative meditation and mindfulness practice, we automatically default to empathy. Now, this is where things get interesting. There's an old saying, let me know in the commentary or the chat window if you've heard this before. The proof of the pudding is in the tasting. So the test of the quality and the effectiveness of our mindfulness and meditation is not, is basically the empathy. And so if we need additional exercises to generate empathy, that tells us that we've taken, remember the Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck commercial when they wind up in the Sahara Desert and Bugs Bunny says, yeah, I must have taken a wrong turn in Albuquerque. Well, we're the same way. If we need to contemplate empathy, if empathy isn't a spontaneous experience, then we took a wrong turn at Albuquerque. We took a wrong turn in our meditation. And this is the place where we take a wrong turn. So listen carefully. And what I'm going to do now is tap button 2. When we are rigid and fearful and controlling, not to mention elitist, competitive, and cruel. When we're rigid and fearful and controlling, we are in yang. When we are flexible, loving, laid back, not to mention egalitarian, cooperative, and kind, but when we are flexible, loving, and laid back, we're in yin. Concentration is rigid. Mindfulness, vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random, is flexible. If we are trying to practice concentration, it's going to undermine our love. If we're choosing to practice mindfulness in a manner that is vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random, it's going to support our love. So this isn't just the ramblings of a big-nosed buffoon sitting in Southern California. These are things that have been verified by fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging studies. Can I cite the peer-reviewed studies? No, it's outside of my purview. But that is what has been observed, that anything that smacks of rigidity is going to pull us into our amygdala. Any things that smack of flexibility are prone to restore us to our anterior cingulate gyrus. Rigidity lends itself to crankiness. Flexibility lends itself to empathy. Bearing all of that in mind, let us practice this in the most gentle, flexible way possible. There was a book written by an East Indian physician whose title translates into English as Your Body's Many Cries for Water. His thesis that many health disorders aren't health disorders, they're symptoms of a higher level disorder, which is typically dehydration. In the modern world we live in, with processed foods and sugary caffeinated beverages, that is not outside the realm of possibility. So it's been my experience and the experience of people much more qualified than myself. There are less psychological problems than we think and more psychological symptoms of physiological problems. Similarly, the quote-unquote problems we have during mindfulness and meditation are typically not problems with mindfulness and meditation. They are problems with our destructive and harmful preconceptions. So now that we have taken a big bite of that enormous hero sandwich called Lama Jigme's view of the Dharma, let's dig in. We're going to play with 16 exercises. Now the number 16 is a bit of a abstraction to simple-minded creatures like you and I who only have 5 digits per hand. So let's break it down to simply 3 sets of 4 meditations each, followed by 1 set of 4 contemplations. That's bite-sized. During our first set of 4 contemplations, I take it back. During our first set of 4 meditations, we're going to allow our bodies to center, as opposed to force our bodies to center. Huge difference. During our short inhalation, we're going to silently and mentally recite the verb calm. During our exhalation, we're going to silently and mentally recite long exhale. So we are already wired for this ratio of short inhalation and longer exhalation. The difference may be subtle, that's fine. But the effects of a longer exhalation is that we tend to experience greater relaxation, which is useful because the absence of this is typically an experience of agitation. So sit up nice and tall in a manner that would delight your grandmother. We come to our second meditation of our first set. During the inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the adjective short. During our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the hyphenated word energize, just like we used to hear on Star Trek. So when our inhalation is shorter than our exhalation, it is an invigorating effect, which is great because the two primary enemies of meditation are agitation and drowsiness. Agitation and drowsiness are not occurring because we're cowards or because we don't care about spirituality, contrary to the ravings of fundamentalists. They occur because we are in disharmony with the parameters of our autonomic nervous system. Ironically, when our inhalations are shorter and our exhalations are longer, these problems fade into the background. Largely. We come to our third of 4 meditations. Things really get interesting now. As we inhale, we silently and mentally recite the verb feel. You see, every time we inhale, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which has evolved for sensory acuity, to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. And during our exhalation, we silently and mentally recite the, oopsie, come on machine, don't be that way. Having some troubles with the touchpad. Boy, this is no fun. Oh, come on now. Feel this body. So we're giving ourselves permission to notice our body, whether it is comfortable or uncomfortable and what it's doing, its position and the like, its energy, its stamina, its comfort. Whether it's pleasurable or painful or interesting or boring, we notice it. We do so passively. This is another name for this exercise, borrowing from the Buddhist tantric tradition, would be Anu Yoga, or very coarse union of sensation and emptiness. If you are very angry or very frightened and you start doing this exercise, you get drowsy, that might mean your body needs a nap more than it needs to sit up and meditate. Meeting our body's needs is not an indulgent defeat. It is quite often the key to sanity. I need to take a moment to turn off my do not disturb function, for I'm expecting a text from a computer repairman. I once was a member of a fundamentalist religious culty organization going back many decades. And when I was feverish and sick, they would not let me sleep. I'm not sure if that was malice or stupidity, but if you find yourself in a situation where people, in the name of spirituality, are forbidding you from meeting your fundamental physical needs, these people are not good for you. Whether they are malicious or foolish, they are not good for you, and they will harm you. We turn now to the fourth meditation of our first set. During our inhalation, we silently and mentally recite form. This noun serves as the monosyllabic synonym of body. During our exhalation, we silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing. What is George doing? George is relaxing. Once again, we do not have to force relaxation. We merely allow it, for we are already wired to relax, to physically relax and mentally release during each exhalation. In terms of Dzogchen, this could be described as a very coarse practice of awareness and emptiness. We now come to our second of 3 sets of meditations. Where we will allow our feelings to center. We begin with the first jhana. Oopsie, boy, I have some trouble here. We begin with the first jhana's blissful joy. It flows from gently grinning with the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes towards our bodies of flesh, blood, and bone. Therefore, during the in-breath, we could silently and mentally recite the verb, grin, and during the exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite to body, describing the object of our grin. Remember, our inhalations are shorter, our exhalations are longer. We come now to the second meditation of our second set of meditations, where we will savor the second jhana's peaceful joy. It flows from, again, gently grinning, with, of course, the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, the crow's feet of our eyes. But this time we're grinning towards our thoughts. And we're using thought as a, what's it called? An umbrella term for emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. During our in-breath, we could silently and mentally recite the verb grin. And during the exhalation, we can silently and mentally mention the object of our grinning, which is our coarse thoughts. Now, one of the cool things is this is a very passive approach, and it's safe to use a passive approach because of the very cunning way with which our central nervous system has evolved, simply by playing with words, silently and mentally reciting words in harmony with our inhalation, exhalation, and relaxation is like loading an app onto your smartphone. We come now to the third jhana's contentment. Which we access by mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. How do we do this? During the inhalation, we silently and mentally recite the verb feel. During the exhalation, we silently and mentally recite the subject of our feeling, these coarse thoughts. whether these thoughts are pleasurable or painful or interesting or boring. We come to the fourth jhana's neutrality, and you see it's kind of like it's like walking down a spiral staircase. We started with something very coarse, blissful joy, then peaceful joy, then contentment, and then neutrality. We do this by allowing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining, to tranquilly relax. And it's very simple how we do this. During the inhalation, we silently and mentally recite the umbrella term thoughts. During the exhalation, we silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing. And due to the wonders with which our central nervous system has evolved, that is sufficient. It's pretty cool. Remember, if at any point during this live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them, simply type that question in great detail in the chat window. Thoughts, relaxing. We come now to our third and final set of meditations, wherein we will allow our minds to center. During this, the fifth jhana, we will access the fifth jhana's sphere of infinite spaciousness, which is the opposite of physically feeling compressed. By mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our mind's capacity to see, hear, feel, taste, smell, and the like. During the inhalation, we mindfully notice, investigate, and coalesce simply by silently and mentally reciting the verb watch. And the object of our perception will be accessed during the exhalation simply by reciting mind's functions, and doing so, of course, silently and mentally. And so, evolutionarily speaking, mind's most basic, these 6 most basic perceptions are much, much older than the coarser functions we just meditated upon. We come now to the sixth jhana, sphere of infinite awareness. And if the previous sphere was the opposite of physical compression, this sphere is the opposite of intellectual compression. We access this experience by allowing our mind to gladden, as towards it we gently smile, from the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes. So during our inhalation, we can silently and mentally recite the verb grin. And during our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite to this mind. Remembering that mind, of course, is a umbrella term for our capacity to see, hear, feel, taste, smell, and the like. Now we come to the seventh. We come to the third of four mind-centered centering practices, where we savor the seventh jhana sphere of non-graspability, as we allow our minds, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, to tranquilly relax in the most sustainable way. Therefore, during the inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the noun, mind. During the exhalation, we can silently and mentally recite the verb, relaxing. We come now to the fourth of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 8th jhana sphere of acquiescent non-labeling by experiencing the liberating equanimity of our controlling tendencies to shove and reach. How do we do that? During the inhalation, we silently and mentally recite the noun, mind. During the exhalation, we silently and mentally recite the adjective, the adjective and the verb, great freeing. Having completed 3 sets of 4 meditations, we now embark on 1 set of 4 contemplations. So we're going to do this, we're going to play with 4 different rhetorical questions. And with all rhetorical questions, our job is not to actively answer these questions, but merely to silently and mentally recite these questions during our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation. What's now changing? We come now to the second of four contemplations, where we consider subtle impermanence with a rhetorical question: what's now fading? And remember, this question is rhetorical. Our job is not to answer it, but to ask it, silently and mentally, in coordination with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation. And yes, in this system, our in-breaths are considerably shorter and more forceful than our out-breaths. We come to the third of four contemplations, where we consider very subtle impermanence with the exercise once, now ceasing. And remember, this question is rhetorical. And now we come to the final contemplation of this morning's practice, where we consider relinquishment or release or surrender with the rhetorical question, what releasing? If you feel that I have earned it, you could you could type something in the chat window, you could give this live stream a thumbs up, you could share it with your friends, or you could support this work on Patreon for about the cost of 1 cup of coffee a month. Or not, the choice is yours. Either way, in approximately 2.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's mid-morning meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.